Hello, I'm Dapper Dan Gavosden, and I own every issue of Amazing Spider-Man, including the annuals, which, Mark, they count more than ever. We got this whole annual show going on.
Well, I was about to say, I mean, you got a hit true crime podcast going right now where, you know, your number one suspect, by the way, terrible, terrible, terrible defamation of character. But anyway, the character being defamed, of course, is the mischievous Mark Ginocchio, which is I. And I, too, own every issue of Amazing Spider-Man, but the annuals don't count, especially annuals. I mean, this is about 5 minutes and 20 seconds in. So here we go. All right. So we did our intros. We are doing today, Dan, you and I, we're going to be putting it all on the line. We're going to be stepping up to the plate, putting it into the outfield, doing home run dances. So many poor sport ball analogies being made in this intro. Good God. But yes, it is that fateful time on the eve of Amazing Spider-Man number 850 and volume 5 number 50, not to mention all those point ones we're going to get, because let's milk this for every cent we can, where we finally go, okay, we're going to lock in our final answer here on what is Kindred, or who is Kindred's identity, before it gets revealed, presumably, for everyone. This is what it is. Who's under the bandages? What? And then we're also going to discuss some of the theories that some of you, our faithful listeners, have had. Dan, this is going to be fun because, we're going to probably be wrong and it's going to be glorious. And then at the end, I'm going to say that I was probably right just to spite you. That's because that's how it goes. I mean, that's been the last 7 years of your life, right?
What shirt are we going to print as of podcast? The Dan was right shirt or the Mark was right shirt? It all hangs on the line.
Right.
What's Dan, the bigger speculation here? Who Kindred is, or if they're actually going to release Kindred's identity in the next few issues?
Well, that is still. I mean, man, is our face going to be red if we go through all this at 850 and 851 come and go? And it's like, no, we're going to make it to 900 before we get to Kindred.
At that point, I will just be flat out angry. I'm just going to say it. There's no holding back. It will make me angry if we got 50 more issues of this.
Right. So, but Dan, you have talked about this almost since day one. I mean, we have had many of Patreon episodes where you have just gone on long, healthy tangents about your speculation of Kindred, and I've just kind of sat there and be like, oh yeah, that's interesting, I like that. So why don't you just put it out there? How has your take evolved? What's going on? You lay it out there for us.
Well, I mean, I'm glad you characterized this as healthy, because I don't know that's how I would characterize it. I think for spending any amount of time on this as an adult man is probably not the healthiest choice of ways to spend your day. But okay, you know what? We're all in quarantine. What else are we doing? And I just, for me, in terms of how this has changed, I think I started off very specific. I was like, this is an embodiment of the marriage, or whatever that marriage soul of the marriage come to life. And I think I both stuck with that idea throughout the years now. I can say that throughout the years. And, but I think my kind of perspective on it has broadened. I think there's a lot of stuff involving like thematic ideas of Spider-Man that are getting wrapped up into this. And so I don't think that my take is quite as specific anymore. And to that point, I'm going to put it to one of our listeners who called in, Jarrett, who gave a theory that I think basically, maybe not exactly, but basically sums up what I'm thinking about right now. So let's play the tape.
Hi, this is Jarrett from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, with my Kindred theory. I will preface my theory by saying it is similar to Dan's theory with a couple differences. I don't think Kindred is any one individual. I think they are an amalgamation of all the memories that were erased during one more day. Mephisto made the world forget, and I think that all of those memories were sent to hell and amalgamated into one being, that being Kindred. This includes everyone's memory of Peter and MJ's marriage, as well as Peter's identity. That being said, I think that certain memories would be larger or hold more weight. For example, the memories of the marriage will be strongest from Peter and MJ, so those memories will form a larger part of Kindred's persona. Another example would be people who knew about Peter's identity for longer, also forming a larger part of Kindred's persona, like Harry Osborn or Captain Stacy. Even though those two are already dead, I think Mephisto's spell pulled the memories from their long-dead souls and added them to Kindred's persona. So building on this idea, I think that Kindred is suffering from some kind of multiple personality disorder, as they are made up of so many different memories. But I think certain situations bring some of the stronger personalities to the surface, such as when Kindred saw Norman and Ravencroft, and it seemed like Harry speaking, or when Peter revealed his identity to Black Cat, and Kindred freaked out like a jealous lover. Could have been MJ, or another old flame, maybe even Gwen. The constant lookouts are manifesting as a result of Captain Stacy's older and stronger memory of Peter's identity. Still unsure how that last one ties together, though, as it doesn't seem to be directly tied to Kindred. Regarding Kindred's appearance, I think the bandages are literally holding them together, as they are not one single being. That is my theory.
All right, so that's a really great theory from Jarrett. He kind of tries to work in the Captain Stacy angle, which kind of gets me back to asking you, Mark, about your theory on that, which I think we can get to in a minute. The one thing that I think, a major thing that I differentiate in regards to Jarrett's take, which I think is kind of where I'm at, which is that it's a conflux of a number of things, is that Jarrett has really tied this idea to the people's memory of Spidey's identity. And that's very different than my take with the marriage thing. So I'm not really sure how this all fits in, because I actually, Mephisto didn't steal people's memories of Spider-Man, right? I mean, that kind of chain of events happened, I think, as a result of Civil War. But that stuff, I think people have tied those together in a way that the background, the lore doesn't support. But then again, also Nick Spencer has kind of tied those two things together within his run. And I don't think that he's this sloppy, but he may just kind of be not leaning into that aspect of that the Harry Osborn stuff and the memory stuff of Doctor Strange's spell isn't related to Mephisto. That's your understanding, right? That those are all very separate things.
Yes, I would say so.
So I don't know how much I feel about that, but I do think that there is something going on here in regards to memory and innocence and the histories of all these characters that have suffered some kind of loss connected to Spider-Man, and that loss being amalgamated into this character that is just pain and woundedness and is lashing out to protect innocents who are related to Spider-Man. Because that's the theme of Spider-Man's marriage, is that MJ decided she couldn't be with Peter because of the associated pain that comes with him being Spider-Man. And so for them to kind of get back together now, it's almost kind of overlooking that. And so what happens to that actual memory? And so in a way, I do think that the marriage is the final straw. The kind of reuniting of MJ and Peter is the final straw that unlocked this kind of raw wound that is Kindred. And there's a scene where Kindred is talking to Norman in Ravencroft that Jared talked to. And, he refers to Norman Osborn as saying, you created me. And I kind of see, the Norman Osborn finding out Peter's identity as kind of one of the last major vestiges of Peter's old life kind of becoming unlocked. And maybe that allowed Peter and MJ to get back together in some way. But again, that's conflating the memory of Peter's identity with Mephisto taking away the marriage. But again, if I'm really just to sum it all up, is I still think that the marriage and Peter and MJ's relationship is the core identity of Kindred, but I think there are other elements, like Jared suggested, where Kindred is also this kind of loss of innocence, the breaking of the promise with with uh, with George Stacy, the sacrificing the marriage to Mephisto. It's like those are the great sins of Peter, which is that he made a deal with the devil to save his aunt, but he didn't save all these other people. And that's kind of coming back to get to haunt him. Is that way too broad, Mark? Is that insane still?
It's not that it's insane. Here's the thing, Dan. Like, going back to the very first time you discussed elements of this theory with me, I was like, that's a pretty cool theory. And like, even hearing that voicemail, I'm like, these are pretty cool theories that make sense. And you know what? Like, at the end of the day, that or some degree of that might be what the answer is. But like, I don't know. Like, I am not going to make a guess like that, because frankly, I feel like, even though I do believe that there is some kind of mystical, otherworldly element to Kindred, that when you're playing a game of who done it and who's under the mask, so you say, there needs to be a tangible answer, and these are not tangible answers. This is just these amalgamations, and I feel like, when it kind of goes all the way back to one of our first interviews with the legendary Tom DeFalco, when he was kind of voicing his displeasure with the great Roger Stern's brother, and Tom, who was someone who had experience writing mystery novels, he felt that it was a cheat. And if you're going to truly do a mystery, you can't cheat. Like, the information needs to be there. It needs to be out there. It needs to be something tangible that people can like figure out. Otherwise, you can just bend the rules of reality every which way to suit your needs. And while that might be great for you, the writer, to kind of mess with your audience, you're ultimately doing everyone a disservice. And I feel like these theories are a disservice. Like, it's like, to me, there needs to be somebody under the mask. It could be someone with supernatural powers and abilities under the mask. But like, this has to be real. And what you're describing, what this listener is describing, are not real. It's just like, it's well, these are memories, and this is the embodiment of this and that, but not this, but not that, but also the promise to, like, the promise to Captain Stacy was look out for her. I mean, I don't understand how that feeds into this. And like, this Captain, like, so Captain Stacy and Harry knew his identity before they died, but then, so their memories are a part of this. But like, so is Tony Stark's memories a part of this? Is Doctor Strange's memories? It doesn't, you know what I mean? Like this sets up such a slippery slope. And the fact of the matter is, over the course of this storyline, like, one of the common themes has been kind of this callback, not even just to the Silver Age of the Amazing Spider-Man, but this very specific kind of time period where you had Peter, MJ, Gwen, Harry, Flash, George Stacy. That's the core here. This is the core that we keep coming back to, this era, this Silver Age era, and then Harry, and then of course Norman, and throughout these stories, we've been getting this constant callback to look out for George Stacy. We have been getting these constant callbacks to the death of Gwen, to Norman, to Harry, to Peter, to MJ. And yes, like, we have obviously the marriage too, but like, the marriage has really been secondary. Like this all started because Peter, the Kindred storyline kicked off when Peter and MJ hooked up again and rekindled their relationship. But the idea of the marriage itself, besides Peter's proposal, really hasn't been addressed, like but whenever we get these flashbacks, it's to this very specific era when they were teenagers and, this kind of youthful innocence. So, like, to me, like, there's something specific to that too. And
Yeah, I mean, that's my struggle is like, how do I find the convergence point between these two things, right? Like, how does the marriage relate to that like era of innocence? Like, they are two completely distinct things to me, but I think kindred has been invoked in both instances, and that's why my theory has gotten broader over time.
because quite frankly, if you go back to, like, let's not even go back to all the stuff with Kindred, because it feels like over and over again the thing that people keep wanting to link back to with this Kindred storyline is One More Day, right? One More Day seems to be the uniting theme of where people think this is going, whether this is going to undo One More Day or reaffirm One More Day, however you see fit. Um, and I think it's also worth noting that, one of the big plot points of One More Day, when Mephisto was doing the undoing of the marriage, was, he introduced Peter and MJ to the daughter they would never have. The daughter who we met in Renew Your Vows. You know what I mean? Like, this was like, I mean, I know, we had, there was another child that was presumably killed by Norman, although we never truly saw what happened off panel during the end of the Clone Saga. But like that, the daughter that they never had was also a pivotal part of that story, and not once has that been referenced in this, and I find that very dubious. Like, if this is truly about the marriage and Peter and MJ and Mephisto, where is that in all this? Like I mean, maybe Kindred's the daughter. That's not what I'm saying, but, like, you know what I mean? Like, but I just feel like some lip service would have to be paid to that, so I guess that's what I'm trying to say here is, like, I feel like there are too many loose screws in that theory of yours, and that, if we're truly playing by a set of rules in a mystery game, we would need to have these things addressed, and we haven't, frankly.
I mean,
Um,
I'm largely sticking with my theory. One, because I believe an element of it will be true. Like, I do think that there is, like you said, a mystical, like some kind of broader thematic choice in why who Kindred will end up being, and I do kind of waffle back and forth because there are instances where people see Kindred and they go, "Oh, it's you," like a specific person, and then there's other times where Kindred is telling us, "Don't focus on who I am, focus on what I want," which to me suggests there's no face under that mask of any kind of value. But I know what you're going to say, Mark, and I guess maybe this is a kind of like bridge to your choice, because I think ultimately your choice is far more likely than mine and can still have that thematic resonance. But I guess I'm going this far because I'm like, well, that seems fairly like they've already telegraphed that. So we should just get to your theory.
well, right. So my theory is that it's Harry Osborn, but, like, my twist to that, like, okay, it's Harry Osborn, big deal, like you said, it's been telegraphed. But what I'm hanging on to, because, I mean, I know I just went through this whole big diatribe about One More Day and, loose screws for that haven't been addressed, etc. But, like, me tying back to One More Day, there were two major status quo changes that came out of One More Day. One was obviously the undoing of the marriage. But literally, the very next page after the final Face It Tiger from MJ, when the marriage was poofed, the very next panel is the resurrection of Harry Osborn. He just shows up at a party in the launching brand new day, and Peter is just kind of like Harry Osborn. You know what I mean? Like, and it was kind of like whatever was part of this spell was bringing Harry back. And of course, it was later explained that Harry was presumed dead after the events of Spectacular 200 and was kind of shuffled off to Europe, like you do.
Like
And
father, like son.
right. And that was that, and now he's back. And of course, we have not seen Harry since what? Amazing Spider-Man. Was he in 800?
He was, yes.
Okay. So we've not seen a Harry since. So it very my spin, my twist is that this is not Harry Lyman. This is this is the this is the version of Harry that died in Spectacular Spider-Man number 200, who went to hell and has now been resurrected from, like as this kind of demon, spawn, due to the fact that Peter is undoing the deal with Mephisto and getting together with MJ. And, Harry's vengeance is that, in Peter's sacrifice for his aunt and in sacrificing his marriage, it in return brought him back to life in a way where he was kind of absolved of his sin and kind of was able to live a normal life again. And in doing this and in backtracking on that deal, he was damning Harry and being selfish. And I feel like that is at the core who Kindred is. I feel like it's something tangible where you pull off the mask and it's that, but there's enough of a wrinkle to it to kind of explain this mystical thing. And in concert with that, I feel that we've been getting so many callbacks and call-outs to Captain Stacy throughout this run. The lookouts, every other issue, right? All these references to Gwen. And what Gwen's death meant to Peter. And no, I don't think Kindred is Captain Stacy, but I believe that this version of the Sin Eater who has been out there is going to be George Stacy under the mask. I know, well, we had that whole issue with Stan. I feel like that's probably going to be the cheat, in that it's going to be some kind of explanation where it's kind of like Stan Carter passed off the soul of the Sin Eater to George Stacy, because I think in the same way that Peter reneging on the deal with Mephisto and getting together with MJ kind of ignited this hellfire in the dead version of Harry Osborn, I feel it did the same in George Stacy, and that, like if you want to talk about the promise, the broken promise of George Stacy, the look out for her son, I feel like that's going to be kind of like what brought this forward, is that, your selfishness, Peter, is bringing this upon you now. Like, I feel that, it's going to come back to this idea that Peter breaking this deal with Mephisto and chasing love is a sign of his selfishness and his inability. And once again, it comes back to responsibility. So, like, that's the thing. I said, I see this storyline as kind of resolving those two dangling things from that era about Harry and Stacy and George Stacy. The one thing that's kind of outstanding is Flash. Where does Flash handle into all this? Because he's been referenced a ton too.
Well, that's why I think it's a little bit like broader of a thing. But yeah, I don't know really quite what it is. And that's the thing, is it's so hard to put a finger on this because it could all be massively retconned, right? Your Harry Osborn thing is a retcon, like anything I'm presupposing is a retcon. There's a lot of things that can be undone, and I think no one would balk at undoing any of the one more day stuff. It's already so convoluted. If you have a way to like put it back in the closet, which I think, do we agree that ultimately this Kindred thing seems like a way for Spencer to directly address one more day and kind of put it in the rearview mirror?
I think so. I definitely think so. I mean, like I don't feel that this storyline ends with Peter and MJ together. I'm not saying it's going to end with somebody dead, but like I don't. I think going forward, the long term of this book, we're not going to see Peter and MJ together. I just don't, because I feel much was put on the line to bring them apart. And even when you go back to when they were put together, nobody wanted them together. The only one who wanted them together was Jim frickin' Shooter. You know what I mean? Like nobody wants this. I know the fans want it, but I don't think people want it. I don't think the people at Marvel want this. So, like, I think one way or another, we're going to use this storyline to get, and that's why I feel like it's going to play on Peter's selfishness and guilt in doing this as a means to undo it again, but just not as a deal with the devil, but as an active moral choice of, in doing this, I am unleashing XYZ on the world, and I can't be responsible for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I wonder if it's also like a tonal reset. So much of Nick Spencer's run is how Alan Churchill puts it, which is like he calls it grim dumb. Like it's just dark, violent Spider-Man, and the callbacks to like typically done through Otley to the Silver Age. I wonder if like facing down like a literal guy that looks like a zombie, like the darkest Spider-Man villain creation, and overcoming that is a way to tonally reset the book from the kind of like I would consider this is very JMD like this era, and I wonder if that's kind of like maybe a factor in it as well, and that's why I feel like the Silver Age, kind of like the spirit of that, is kind of under assault here in some way. But yeah, I mean, yeah. The other thing that I can't really square is that the costume of Kindred, like that goes into my marriage thing. Like the discovery of that first kiss image, to me, if that's not a part of it, like I'm foreseeing in the next issue or two, we're going to get like a 4 or 5 page double spreads, layout of the history of Spider-Man and how this character has pulled a little bit from everywhere. I mean, maybe it's pure coincidence that image of Peter and MJ kissing the first time matches up with Kindred's costume. If it is, it's a hell of a coincidence. But I don't know how to square that with
but
like
the costume
anything
also
else.
has a lot of purple in it, Dan, and like I mean, purple has always been a Goblin color. You know what I mean? Like it's I don't know. Like I know what you're saying, and I don't disagree, but like there's still that visual. Oh gosh, I don't even remember what issue it's from, but it was early on where like Kindred is kind of leaping through the page, and I think even then I remember saying to you, this looks like someone on a Goblin glider. Like he's got the purple cowl and like the full suit, and he's kind of jumping out. His legs are kind of angled up like he's perched on something jumping through the page, and I'm like, he looks like he's on a Goblin glider. Like it was very specific,
Or he looks like Spider-Man.
or he looks like Spider-Man. True, but I don't know. I do. I know you're saying you think I might be closer or whatever. I think we're both horribly wrong, but like I'm just saying that I feel like my choice, right or wrong, at least kind of plays within a set of rules that I don't feel other speculations like to me people who say, and we have listeners who say this, Captain Stacy, at least like to me, like that planet plays through a set of rules. Like I would be disappointed if Kindred is Captain Stacy, because I feel like like to me it makes sense as Sin Eater because of the fact I'm saying Sin Eater because I see the Sin Eater as like this authority character. It's clearly a cop. Like we've been dealing with like kind of the lineage of the police force in Spider-Man over the course of the storyline. It would make sense that George Stacy kind of ties into that somehow. But like I don't see why George Stacy would be Kindred. Like to me that doesn't carry through. I would be disappointed if that was the reveal. But at least like I feel like that's a reveal that plays within a set of rules and would be a fair guess, and would be a fair reveal. Whereas these theories of these like really high-minded amalgamations of this, that, and the other thing, I mean, like that very well might be what it is. I mean, I read what do you call it? The Captain America story.
Secret Empire.
Thank you. I read Secret Empire, and like the resolution to that was equally kind of like high-minded. You know what I mean? It wasn't. It was like, well, this is this, but that, you know, like, what? Fine. So, Spencer might be going back to that well for this, but I don't know. I would rather see it be something a little more tangible. So that's why I'm going to stay with mine, and say it's Harry Osborn, the dead Harry Osborn.
And for the record, the people that Mark is referencing, Chris Long emailed us and said that it was George Stacy, and he had some good reasons why. And Adam emailed us and said that it was a multiverse manifestation of Peter's accumulative failures, which is kind of what I was saying. And let's see here. Who else? We got Tim Peterson, who said it's Carly Cooper, which to me seems like a dangling thread we haven't even addressed in the pages of this Sin Eater story. I don't know that I agree, obviously, but I don't think none of these are too out there, and that's the thing. Anybody could be it. Grant Hutchinson says that that he thinks it's Anna Mae Parker. Grant and I have gone back and forth on this a number of times. I very much disagree, but he is very strong-minded in terms of that he thinks it's her. So, do any of those, ring true for you at all, Mark?
Yes and no. I don't think Carly rings true to me, although, like you said, what's her role in this? I mean, outside of the fact that she's on the police force. I mean, Annie Parker's certainly interesting because, again, like I said earlier, like where is the child in all this? Like that's a big dangling thread. That if this is truly about one more day and addressing one more day in some kind of meaningful way, Annie needs to be brought in somehow.
I will say, for the record, Annie Parker is the younger sister to Mayday, who died in that universe. So not the same person.
Right. And George Stacy, again, like I would be disappointed, but like I would also not be surprised because I feel like there has at least been some work put in to fairly establish him as a potential suspect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean.
So, like, yeah, I wouldn't be happy, but at least it would be a fair guess. But yeah, I mean, these other theories, I just feel like, I don't know, like, how do you define what this is? Like, it's the embodiment of the marriage plus this plus that, but not this and not that. It's whatever Nick Spencer says it is, and that to me is kind of like, all right, well, that's really just poor writing. You know what I mean? Because then you can just make it anything. I can make it this microphone that I'm talking into. It's the spirit of the microphone and all of the words of Spider-Man that I ever think. And there's not enough there to me to be like, this is that. I feel like it has to be something physical in some way. And these things are not physical. So that's why I just can't buy fully into that.
I hear you, Mark, and I think you're I think you're right. I mean, but to me, I think he's going to go for the more kind of like, so to speak, high-minded approach. But I mean, I think if the trouble with this is, and I think this is where we can end the conversation, is that like you could lay out all of the so-called clues that we've received through all these issues. And I've seen people online with charts that are trying to like square all this. And I think you and I have time to time discussed all the clues, but it's hard to know what's a clue and what's not. And I would very much like to be like, I'm a Spider-Man nerd. I can guess who this is because it's building upon my knowledge. And Spencer definitely likes to do that, right? He leans hard into the obscure in this book. We have several issues about Gog. And I just can't seem to do that in this. I think if I were to do it, I would come up with your idea, Mark, which is why I said I ultimately think you're probably right. My theory is more about like me having read Nick Spencer's other books and thinking that's the kind of thing he likes to do. But I mean, there's no clear answer here. And whoever it ends up being, if we even get it in the next two issues, I think it's going to require a reread to see if like the rules were actually played fairly.
Oh, 100%. I look forward to that. I look forward to poking
Yeah,
the
well,
hole
Mark, why
in
don't you
whatever
bring us
it's in.
home?
Of course. Well, it is, of course, that time for all the good things to come to an end, including endless speculation about things that really don't matter, but matter to us. So we want to say thank you to you, the listeners and viewers, for tuning into this episode of The Amazing Spider Talk.
Yeah, and as always, this episode was edited by Rick Coase with production support from Andy Myers. Our artwork comes handcrafted by artists Ron Friend, Sal Buscema, and Ray Sumser. Our theme songs were produced by Rylan Bojack, Tony Thaxton, and Spider Madge. This episode was originally released on Patreon as a live stream hangout with us back when Amazing Spider-Man Volume 5, number 48 was released, right before we got what I'm supposing now is the reveal of Kindred. So if you'd like to help us support our show's continued existences and these discussions while joining us on a live stream, why not head on over to Patreon and sign up? So, Mark, until Kindred is revealed to be the actress who played Aunt May in Amazing Spider-Man 400, what's our motto?
Oh, God. Well, that motto, of course, is, with great podcasts, there must also come.
For supporting us. We'll see you real soon.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Too many who know the angles, uncover and untangle all the questions and the webs left out to tangle. Be in 1962, last Wednesday's afternoon, they'll bend your ears with reckless self-abandon. The Amazing Spider Talk. The Amazing Spider